Now I am going to explain economic policies of early Islamic State. The period of early Islamic State begins with the arrival of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in Medina to the demise of the fourth Caliph Ali. May Allah be pleased with him. This period has always been referred to as the reference point for all generations and sections of Muslims, including their jurists and other scholars. The first major socio-economic issue, the newly formed Islamic State of Medina, after the migration of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, from Mecca in the 13th year of his prophethood, dealt with was to rehabilitate all migrants from Mecca who had to come to the new place empty-handed. The Prophet solved the problem in a very simple and natural way. He arranged brotherhood between the migrants with their local companion followers, Ansars. The Mujahids were basically businessmen, traders, and with little or no exposure to agriculture. The Ansars were basically agriculturists, as palm, date farming, and other agricultural produce were their sources of earning. The business, trade, and craftsmanship were the sole domain of the Jewish population living around the city of Medina. The bond of brotherhood created by the new faith was very successful, and so work was distributed between them accordingly. Medinan Ansars did the agricultural work, and the Meccan Mujahids helped them in their work. Both shared the produce equally. Another master stroke of the Prophet was to open a market near the Prophet's mosque. This was the tune with the talents of the Mujahids, and it led to turning the tables in favor of inhabitants of the city as the Medina market became the center of all future business activities. It was a new and welcome addition to the landscape. So the second notable task in terms of its economic policies performed by this early Islamic state was the optimum utilization of the available talents and creation of opportunities for further growth. Islam adopted a natural and gradual method for eradication of wrong practices. Examples of prohibition of interest and consumption of alcohol may be cited. Proper atmosphere for these steps were prepared through education and training. Hence, when the relevant commandments of the Quran and the announcement from the Prophet for their prohibitions came, the society was fully prepared to accept it. However, it is required to mention two practices in the economy, which the human society till a couple of centuries considered severely injurious, but which have now been accepted as useful or as necessary. These are interest and speculations. These have no place in an Islamic setup. Particularly, Islam is uncompromising on interest. The Quranic term for interest is riba, which means any increase in a debt or loan amount or anything which has become payable. Islam stands for free market economy. However, the notion of free market economy has its own preconditions. It cannot be practiced to the extent of causing harm to the society, as societal obligations have preference over individual rights. The Islamic State in its early period maintained a balance. We may refer to the example of custom duty on goods from foreign nations levied by Caliph Umar, may Allah be pleased with him. He fixed the duty at 10%, equivalent to what was being levied in other countries. However, when the economy was in bad shape, he decreased it to 5%. It is the duty of the state to ensure the goals of economy in addition to keeping it free of all types of corruptions. Such goals in today's parlance may be called macroeconomic objectives. Islam stands for welfare of human beings, and its provisions are meant to ensure justice for all so that the desired prosperity in human society may be achieved. The ingrained principles of economic transaction in Islam may be summed up as justice, equity, growth, and welfare of human beings. This can be done by ensuring that the higher objectives of Islamic law are adhered to. Islamic scholars have described these higher objectives of Islamic law as protection of life, religion, reason, and property, as also preservation of dignity and freedom. The principle of circulation of wealth in the society is a basic policy guidance for the state. Hence, when Egypt was captured by the Muslim army and demand for distribution of its land to the army men was raised, Caliph Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, refused and cited this verse of the Quran. One of the reasons he put forward that all wealth should not be allowed accumulating in the hands of the few, so that it may be available for all the children of the next generations. Another example relating to optimum utilization of all the resources is that of providing free utilized land to persons who promoted to make it cultivable and actually do cultivation within a time frame. There are several examples of the Prophet providing barren land for productive use. Further, there are examples where the Prophet took back such land on failure to use them for cultivation within the stipulated time and gave it to other persons for the purpose. The purpose was not to let any asset go wasteful. Thus we find that the early Islamic state applied both macro and macroeconomic methods, as we say today, to achieve the goal of justice, equity, and growth.